Hello, welcome to Physics, Chapter 14, Part 1. I'm planning on splitting this chapter into perhaps as many as 4 parts. My phone automatically cuts me off after 30 minutes, so I'd rather not have that happen. So I'm going to try to keep it to 30 minutes, checking the time. Okay, 30 minutes from now. All right, I think I can do this. This chapter is chapter 14, gases and plasmas, and let's dive right in. First of all, what is unique about a gas? Sure, from previous studies you probably have some concept of what makes a gas a gas. Unlike liquids, and certainly unlike solids, a gas is known for expanding to fill its container. You put water in a container, it goes down. You've got air above it, or perhaps a vacuum above it, and you got all the liquid down here. It takes the shape of the container, but it sits down. You put a gas in a container, and that gas spreads out and fills the entire container. So it fills all the available space. However, with planetary atmospheres, there's something else going on. That gas would love to expand into all the space available to it. But if you consider the atmosphere of the Earth, how big is that space that's available to it? How about like to the end of the universe? Why doesn't our atmosphere simply expand and fill the whole universe? And well, it would be very, very thin by then, of course, but why doesn't it expand and just disappear? Because it's being held to the Earth by gravity. Yes, there is a gravitational attraction of the Earth on the atmosphere. Of course, gravity attracts any 2 particles of matter in the universe, including particles of our atmosphere: air, oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, all those things attracted to the Earth. So there are 2 competing factors. You've got gravity trying to pull it in, but if you didn't have something else to keep it out a little bit, that gravity would pull it in and make it condense all the way to the point where it becomes a liquid and there's no air to breathe, just liquid oxygen and liquid nitrogen and all that stuff. So what keeps it from condensing all the way down to a liquid? The fact that the Earth is warm. So you got the warmth of the atmosphere trying to make it expand, competing against the gravity of the Earth trying to pull it in, and those 2 reach a perfect, delicate balance between gravity pulling in and expansion of heat pushing out, and we get a nice, neat atmosphere. Now, I happen to be, by the way, on page 267, and I'm about to change over to 268. 268, yes. Okay, looking at the book here. How high is our atmosphere? Well, the space station flies at some place around about 240 miles. They have changed it at least once. It was flying lower, and they moved it out farther to get it away from some of the atmosphere molecules because they were causing a little bit of trouble. But there's no real meaning to where is the top of the atmosphere, because the atmosphere simply gets thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner as you go up. There's no real point where it totally disappears. It just gets a whole lot thinner as you rise. I'm not going to put the diagram on the board. I'm going to refer you to page 268, the diagram there, where they show you how the atmosphere, shall I say, stacks up, literally. He explains in that diagram that 50%, half of the Earth's atmosphere, is below 5.6 kilometers. Which is like halfway up Mount Everest, as you can see in that diagram. Half of our atmosphere is squashed down at that level. And by the way, you don't have to know these numbers, just the general concept, that as you go higher and higher and higher, when you get to, say, 30 kilometers up, looking on the right side of the diagram, when you get up to 30 kilometers, 99% of the atmosphere is below there. So you've only got 1% of the atmosphere left above 30 kilometers. And you get up to 40 kilometers, you're in the ozone layer. And, hello, Mr. Bronson. Where was I? You have very, very little atmosphere up there, but funny thing is, the atmosphere, even if you go as far as, where was it? Someplace in the book he tells us that even in what we would consider to be space, way out there, you still have occasional Earth atmosphere molecules still hanging around out there. So there's no real top of the atmosphere. Now, because gravity is pulling that atmosphere in, because there's a gravitational attraction between the Earth and the molecules of the atmosphere, that gives the atmosphere something called weight. Air has weight. Air has mass, therefore air has weight. And air is probably heavier than you may realize. He tells us here at the bottom of page 269 that 1 cubic meter of air, 1 cubic meter, that would be about like this tall, about that wide, about that deep. 1 cubic meter of air has a mass of about 1.14 kilograms. So it's a little bit heavier than this 1 kilogram mass, which is like, wait a minute, no, yes, hard to believe, but true. There's another point in here someplace where he explains that, and I don't recall where it is, he says that and for some reason he refers to your little sister, he says that the air in your little sister's bedroom weighs more than she does. Yes, air has weight. And that the weight of that air presses on our body all the time. How much does it press on our body? Well, I have a clever little device here. These are known as Magdeburg hemispheres. Hemi, meaning half spheres, 2 Magdeburg hemispheres. Why are they called Magdeburg hemispheres? Because they were invented by a dude named Magdeburg. I've always liked this guy's name. Someday I want to change my name to this, and he has a cool title too. His name and his title, he is Otto von Guericke, I got it wrong, try it again. Otto von Guericke, the Burgermeister of Magdeburg. Oh, I would love to be Otto von Guericke, the Burgermeister of Magdeburg. That is so cool. But Burgermeister would imply he's like the town mayor, I guess, of a place called Magdeburg. And he invented something back in 1654. He did an experiment. He created these, I believe they were made of copper. Yes, copper hemispheres like these, but a whole lot bigger. Magdeburg's hemispheres, as illustrated on page 269, were a ½ meter in diameter each. So he's got these 2 big hemispheres about yay big around. And he put a leather gasket in here and soaked it with oil so that air can't get through. He put them together, and he used a vacuum pump that I believe he himself had invented, and he pumped the air out of them. I'm going to take these 2 hemispheres, I'm going to press them together, all right, and I'm going to watch them fall apart. Not very exciting, very uninteresting. They fall apart. However, if I put them together, well, first of all, let's attach this thing, which is a vacuum pump. Oops! I'm going to attach my vacuum pump to this hose. Now, I am going to put the hemispheres together with a rubber gasket in between. Magdeburg didn't have rubber, he had to use leather, oil-soaked leather. And now I'm going to pump the air out of the hemispheres. So I'm creating not a total vacuum, this pump is not that good, but I'm creating somewhat of a vacuum inside the hemispheres. Uh-oh, that didn't work, what's wrong? Something's not happening right here. Did I neglect some aspect of this thing? It's not doing what it's supposed to do. Maybe the problem is I don't remember exactly how this thing works. Okay, do I have to hold the button while I do this? I don't think so. Maybe I do. Yes, I think I do. Okay, I've got it now. Holding the little button while I do this. That's opening the valve, allowing the air to go from the hemispheres through the pump out into the atmosphere. And this is wearing my hand out very rapidly because the greater the vacuum, the harder it is to squeeze this thing. I am now going to release the button, take off the pump. Now this would work a whole lot better if we were in a traditional classroom setting. If we were, I would have somebody grab hold of one of these two handles and someone else grab hold of this handle, perhaps me, and we would pull against each other and attempt to pull the hemispheres apart. And I assure you that no matter who I pick in the room, if I hand you this handle and I take this handle and we sit here and pull, I will pull you out of your chair or you'll pull me off my feet before we'll break these things apart. I have seen folks break them apart, but it takes a lot of force, a lot of pulling to get them apart. Now, I didn't pump it out as well as I could, so it might be that I can pull these. I'd like to attach it to the wall someplace and pull against it with both hands, but I have nothing to attach it to. But I can't. You're pretending to pull. No, I'm not pretending. I really am trying to pull these things apart. I'm probably going to feel it in the morning. But I cannot pull these things apart for anything. Now, if I push the little button, allowing air to go back into the hemispheres, watch what happens if I simply push the button, letting air back in, and it falls apart. So what was going on? One might say, oh, well, the suction inside, you made a vacuum, so the suction inside was pulling the hemispheres together. If the hemispheres are being pulled together, doesn't a pull require a force? Or in fact, isn't a pull equal to a force? So you're telling me that the fact that there's nothing in there, somehow that nothingness is able to reach in there and pull the hemispheres together? Can nothing exert a force? No. What's holding them together then? It's not the vacuum that's pulling them together. There is no such thing. No matter what you might think or what anyone might try to tell you, there is no such thing as a vacuum pulling on anything. What's actually going on is, when I remove the air from inside, you've got all this atmospheric pressure. The atmosphere is quite heavy. That atmosphere is pushing on this thing from all sides. And because there's no equal pressure on the inside to cancel it out, since all the pressure is on the outside, it squeezes these things together with a tremendous amount of force, thus demonstrating that, yes, the atmosphere does have weight. Magdeburg did this with his half-meter diameter hemispheres, and they hooked up, back in 1654, they hooked up 2 teams of 8 horses each. We're talking 16 horses. 8 horses hooked up pulling that way, 8 horses hooked up pulling that way, and 16 horses could not pull his hemispheres apart. Pretty cool. Why not? Because the atmosphere is indeed that heavy. In fact, I haven't hit this concept yet, but the atmosphere is heavy enough that it applies. Not only does 1 cubic meter of air weigh 1 1/4 kilograms, or I'm sorry, kilograms is not a weight. Not only does it not have a mass of 1 1/4 kilograms, which would be about about 2.5 pounds, but it applies, the atmosphere applies, because the atmosphere is being all squashed down from above, we're experiencing all the weight of the atmosphere above us. It pushes on every square inch of my skin with 15 pounds of pressure. About 15 pounds per square inch of pressure on every inch of my body. So that's a lot of weight. I mean, this thing is only 2.2 pounds. What would it feel like to have 15 pounds pushing on 1 square inch on the back of my hand? Well, that's crazy. That can't be true. Yes, it is. Why don't I feel it? Because not only do I have 15 pounds per square inch of pressure on this side, I also have 15 pounds per square inch of pressure on the inside pushing back out. Everything is equal. Just like, how much pressure is there deep in the water? Oh, a lot of pressure. Yes, a lot of pressure. Does it squash fish? Does that pressure kill the fish? No. Because they have the same amount of pressure inside as what there is outside, so it all cancels out. They don't care. They don't feel that pressure. We don't feel the air pressure because there's pressure on the outside, there's pressure on the inside, everything cancels, so we don't experience it. We have a hard time believing that air even has weight. Like stick your hand out and try to hold some air. What's it feel like? It feels like nothing. Yet it has a mass of 1.4 kilograms per cubic meter. Fascinating. Cool stuff. Now, let's see, what time is it? Don't want to go past 30 minutes. All right. Paul Hewitt has a pretty cool diagram on page 269, just to emphasize the point again. He has a vacuum pump over here someplace off the screen, and that vacuum pump is hooked up to a chamber here, and in that chamber there is a piston. That piston's sitting here like this, and hanging from the piston, he has a hook here, and hanging from the hook, he has a mass of, he doesn't say, just a heavy mass. Some kind of heavy load here. I don't know what the load is, but some kind of heavy mass. This piston is free to slide up and down, but no air can get past here. He hooks this up to the vacuum pump and takes out all the air. So there's a vacuum inside here. Cool thing is, this weight here will be held upward. It will not just fall out. As long as there's a vacuum inside here, this weight will be suspended. So why? Is there something pulling the weight up? No, there's nothing pulling the weight up. There's a vacuum in here, we've got suction in here, but that suction is not pulling the weight up. Vacuums can't pull, because what's a vacuum? Nothing. Nothing can't exert a force. So what's holding this up? Atmospheric pressure. Just like back in chapter 13, where pressure in a fluid is exerted equally in all directions, the atmospheric pressure is also pushing up on this piston. It's the weight of the atmosphere pushing this piston up, holding this large mass up above the floor. Vacuums don't suck, but atmosphere pushes. Even a suction cup, just trying to think, I didn't bring a suction cup down here with me. If I had a suction cup, you put a suction cup on this board perhaps. What holds that cup on the board? Oh, it's the suction. No. You push that thing against the board, and it wants to pull back out this way because it's made of rubber. You push it in, it wants to pull back out. As it tries to pull back out, as it tries to pull back out, what happens? The pressure inside here is being decreased because you're expanding the area. The air in there is moving outward. You have less pressure inside the suction cup. You have more pressure outside from the atmosphere. What holds the cup onto the wall? The atmosphere pushing the suction cup in. That's why if you break the seal, it falls right down, because you're letting air get in here and equalize the pressure. Once the pressures are equal, then there's no longer a net inward force pushing it against the wall, and it just falls right down. So suctions don't pull, vacuums don't pull, rather atmosphere pushes. Pretty cool. Hey, perhaps, let's see, how am I doing time-wise? Not real good. There's just enough time for me to show you one of my favorite demonstrations. I was going to do this during chapter 13, but this is actually perhaps more appropriate for chapter 14. I need to try to, at this time, mess up my configuration here of my camera. Stand by while I do this. I'm going to get it down lower, and I'm going to bring it over here, and I'm going to try to zero in on my little demonstration table here and see if I can zoom in close enough for you to get an idea. This looks much better when done in person than it's going to look on the video, I suspect, but we'll give it a try. You need to be able to see the whole thing here. All right, we'll see how well this does. Let me go down a little lower. Can I go lower? A little lower, not much. All right. I have a jar here that's totally full of water all the way to the brim. See it there? Okay. I have another jar here that's almost full to the brim. This is a pure demo, meaning I've never seen anybody ever do this anyplace ever before. It's a pure original. So if this video goes viral, right, let it be known that this demonstration was invented by me, Mr. Peer. So anyway, first of all, the first part of this little demonstration you've probably seen before. Maybe you've done it before just for fun. Maybe you've done it in your kitchen sink at home. Now, if this doesn't work well, and once in a while it doesn't, if this doesn't work well, I'll have a big mess here to clean up. But it's worth it, okay? To entertain you right now, it's worth it. I'm going to put a piece of cardboard on top of this jar, which is also now totally full of water. You can see there that it is totally full. I've got both jars totally filled with water. All right, I'm going to put this piece of cardboard on top here. Get this out of my way. And you might be able to guess what I'm going to do next if you've ever seen anything like this before. I'm going to now take this whole thing, and I'm going to turn it sideways and even upside down. And how in the world can I do that? What's holding the water up there? Air pressure pushing up on the water. More to say about that. I've got to do this quickly before my cardboard soaks through and everything is lost. I've now put the two jars together. I will now remove, oops, oh, it's getting really waterlogged. Oh no, I have a low quality piece of cardboard here. It's already soaked through, which implies that I'm going to have a mess by the time this is over. Okay, yeah. Oh, that's pretty bad. That piece of cardboard is shot. Look at that. Okay, I would usually use this again to undo what we just did, but that's not happening this time. All right, so I now have the two jars together, totally full of water. We got a few air bubbles that came up during the process, so we got about a 1/4 inch or less of air in the top of this jar. That's okay. Now, so far, not horribly surprising. Kind of cool, but not surprising. I now throw in the pure peer demo part of this. Maybe someone's done this before. Probably someone in the world has done this, but I've never seen it. Except for when I do it. I am now going to do something phenomenal. This is a combination of air pressure along with surface tension from chapter 13. I'm going to ever so slightly lift one side of the top jar and insert, and insert my knife in there. Now think about what you're seeing for a moment. Those jars are now not touching each other except for one little point of contact over here on this side and what you might call contact where the knife is in between the two, which means that on this side over here and on the other side over there, there's nothing but open space. Yet the water is not coming out. Why is the water not coming out? Two reasons. Number one, atmospheric pressure. Believe it or not, there is enough weight of air above us that it will not only hold all of this water up in this jar simply by the weight of the atmosphere pushing up on that water. It'll not only hold the air, the water in this jar. If this jar were 34 feet tall, the atmosphere is heavy enough to support a 34-foot column of water. If it were 35 feet, you would end up with some space at the top. Because the atmosphere can only hold up it's amazing. It can hold up 34 and only about, depending on atmospheric conditions, about 34 feet of water. So for the atmosphere right now to be holding up this measly 10 or so inches is nothing. The atmosphere is saying, oh, give me a real challenge. This is too easy. Now, it gets a little bit better from there. I'm now going to make it even more amazing. If you're not already amazed enough, I am going to insert my other knife on the other side, meaning that the two jars are now not touching each other at all. There's about, I'm going to estimate that to be about a 1/8, maybe a 3/16 inch gap between the two jars, and no water is coming out. So I said there are two concepts here. One is the atmosphere pushing on that gap, holding the water in. But water is so flimsy, why doesn't it just kind of sneak out? Because of surface tension. Remember, Water has surface tension, which means that that little gap of water in there acts like it has a skin, and the atmosphere is pushing against that skin-like surface and enabling it to, well, do what you see it doing. So that's pretty cool. That is what I've never seen anywhere before. I like it. The jars not even touching each other. Now I would like to, real quickly if I can, find something sturdy that I can slip in between those and take it together without making a mess, so I could demonstrate one more thing, but I have no idea where to go to get something quickly, so I'm going to have to give up. That's sad. But anyway, would this work? No, there's no chance that would work. It's not wide enough. I can't slip this in there. Yeah, I have to give... Oh, wait a minute. How about if I rip the cover off of... Oh, yes. I'm going to rip the cover off of this notebook. It's worth the sacrifice. There, I just ripped open a college-ruled spiral notebook. 3 subject. Okay. Now, tell you what, if I do this, I can use the other one next year. All right, I'm now going to slip this. Well, let's take out the knives first. This is a little bit tricky. I sometimes get some leakage when I undo the process. Remove one knife. Remove the other knife. Open up my gap. Insert cardboard. Okay, get a few bubbles. That's normal. And now I can lift it up. By the way, until just months ago, for the first time ever, I tried this, where you can actually tip it sideways and not lose anything. You don't have to hold your... I used to have to I thought I had to hold my hand over it all the time until I got it like this, but you don't. Isn't that cool? And there's nothing holding that thing on except for air pressure. Nothing but air pressure holding that cardboard on there. Now here's something you could try in a restaurant. Of course, you can't go in restaurants anymore, not with coronavirus, so forget that. But if you take your... please don't do this. I mention this because it's kind of funny and it's a nice application, but don't do this. Take your tip at a restaurant. Put your tip in a glass of water, full glass of water. Take your menu, put it on top of the glass. Turn it upside down. Put it on the table. Then, I'm not going to do it right now, but pull the menu out. Then the waiter or waitress comes along and sees an upside down glass of water with their tip inside. Unless they know their physics, the only way they're going to get that out is by lifting the cup and the water's everywhere, and you've done something very, very mean. But we don't do mean things to people. It's just funny to think about, but it's not funny to do. No, don't do that. But you could. Don't. Well, how would a smart waiter or waitress handle this? They would stick the menu back under it, as it is right now, and then say, look, that didn't go well. It didn't stay with me. It stuck to the table. I will have to, oh man, I hope I don't lose this, because if I lose it, I've got a really big mess on the carpet. Okay, there we go. And ta-da, it's still working. Now I can release the paper, and there it goes, ta-da. Okay, so there is one of my all-time favorite demonstrations. There's much more that I could show you, but the end of my 30-minute limit is coming up here. So we will continue with part 2. Again, this video will be broken into multiple parts, perhaps, how's that? There we go. Perhaps 3, 4, or maybe even 5 parts. So stay tuned for part 2 soon. And for now, that's it. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever part of the day you have left. Goodbye.